Hello YouTube! We're on the Real Programming channel. It is about HTML and CSS. My name is Andrei. This is our 67th lesson. I greet you. We will talk about arranging elements. Chapter 11, Layout and Positioning. It's time to teach your HTML elements new trick. We're not going to let those HTML elements just sit there anymore. It's about time they get up and help us create some pages with real layouts. How? Well, you got a good feel for the div and span, structural elements, and you know all about how the box model works, right? So now it's time to use all that knowledge to craft some real designs. No, we're not just talking about more background and font colors. We're talking about full-blown professional designs using multi-column layouts. This is the chapter where everything you learn comes together. Did you do the super brain power? If you didn't do the super brain power at the end of the last chapter, then march right back there and do it. It's required. Okay, now that we have that out of the way, at the end of the last chapter, we left you with a bit of a cliffhanger. We asked you to move the Elixirs div up under the logo, and then add one little property to the Elixirs rule in your CSS like this. Float right. And whoa, what a difference one property can make. All of a sudden the page has gone from a fairly ordinary looking web page to a great looking web page with 2 columns. It's immediately more readable and pleasant to the eye. So what's the magic? How did this seemingly innocent little property produce such big effects? And can we use this property to do even more interesting things with our pages? Well, of course, but first you're going to need to learn how a browser lays out elements on a page. Once you know that, we can talk about all kinds of ways you can alter how it does that layout, and also how you can start to position your elements on the page. Here's the good news. So you already know about block elements and the line elements, and you even know about the box model. There's the real foundations of how the browser puts a page together. Now all you need to know is exactly how the browser takes all the elements in a page and decides where they go. As the flow look. The flow is what gives a CSS master his power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together. Oh, sorry. Flow is actually what the browser uses to lay out a page of HTML elements. The browser starts at the top of any HTML file and follows the flow of elements from top to bottom, displaying each element it encounters. And just considering the block elements for a moment, it puts a line break between each one. So the first element in a document is displayed first, then a line break followed by the second element, then a line break, and so on, from the top of your file to the bottom. That's flow. Here's a little abbreviated HTML, and here's the HTML flowed onto a page. Each block element is taken in the order it appears in the markup and placed on the page. Each new block element causes a line break. Notice that elements take up the full width of the page. Here's your page. Should be. It's an exercise with the browser. Open your long HTML file and locate all the block elements. Flow each one to the page to the left. Just concentrate on the block elements. nested directly inside the body element. You can also ignore the float property in your CSS because you don't know what it does yet. Check your answer before moving on. Here are all the block elements you'll need to complete the job. What about inline elements? Here's another little snippet of HTML. So you know that block elements flow top to bottom with the line break in between each element easy enough. What about the inline elements? Inline elements are flowed next to each other horizontally from up left to bottom right. Here is how that works. If we take the inline content of this P element and flow it onto the page, we start at the top left. The inline elements are laid next to one another horizontally as long as there is room on the right to place them. Here, there is the room to fit all the inline elements horizontally. Notice that text is a special case of an inline element. The browser breaks it into inline elements that are the right size to fit the space. So what if we make the browser window a little thinner, or we reduce the size of the content area with the weight property, and there's less room to place the inline elements in? Let's see how this works. Now the content has been flowed left to right until there are no more room, and then the content is placed on the next line. Notice the browser had to break the text up a little differently to make it fit nicely. And if we make the content area even thinner, look what happens. The browser uses as many lines as necessary to flow the content into the space. How it all works together. Now that you know how block and the inline elements are flowed, let's put them together. We'll use a typical page with headings, paragraph, and few inline elements like spans, some emphasis elements, and even images, and we can't forget inline text. We're starting with the browser window that's been resized to a fairly wide width, and each block element is flowed to top to bottom as you would expect, with the line break in between each. Here's where it resides, the browser window, squeezing all the content into a smaller horizontal size. Things flow the same way, although in some places the inline elements take up more vertical lines to fit. And the inline elements are flowed from the top left to the bottom right of the element's content area. If the inline content of each blocks with the width of the content area, then it's placed there. Otherwise, more vertical room is made for the content and is continued on the next line. Now the block elements take up more vertical room because the inline content has to fit into a smaller horizontal space. So let's zoom in just a bit and look at one more aspect of how the browser lays out block and inline elements. It turns out that the browser treats margins differently depending on which type of element is being placed on the page. When the browser is placing two inline elements next to each other, when the browser has the task of placing two inline elements side by side, and those elements have margins, then the browser does what you might expect. It creates enough space between the elements to account for both margins. So if the left element has a margin of 10 pixels and the right has a margin of 20 pixels, then there will be 40 pixels of space between the two elements. Margin. Here we got two images side by side, and the images are displayed as inline elements by default. So the browser uses both of their margins to calculate the space that goes between them. When the browser is placing two block elements on top of each other, here's where things get more interesting. When the browser places two block elements on top of each other, it collapses their shared margins together. The height of the collapsed margin is the height of the largest margin. When the browser places two block elements on top of each other, it collapses their margins. The shared margin is the size of the larger of the two margins. Say the top element's bottom margin is 10 pixels and the bottom element's top margin is 20 pixels. Then the collapsed margin will be 20 pixels. And how to flow an element? We'll talk about this in the next lesson, and this is concludes our lesson 67. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel. Please put like, share with friends, comment. Eat bananas, chocolate and nuts, drink more water for the effective work of our brains. Bye!